Let me ask you about a date. You mentioned it briefly, and we'll hone in on it, 2012. I think the Mayans were onto something. I think it's a celestial event. I've said that it could be a solar event, but whatever it is, I think it's tied to some kind of celestial object that somehow the Mayans knew affected this planet. Do you think 2012 something could happen to us or to this planet?
Possibly. I wouldn't rule it out. In the context of the dark star, the scenarios that you could paint to describe it would be complicated. I wouldn't like to say it's a simple solution. My favourite solution of all of this is actually one of Maurice Cotterell's, who described quite a lot of stuff to do with the Mayans, and he was describing the sun's activity in terms of great cycles, not just the 11.5-year cycles, but in terms of great cycles. And he did some work on this and came to the conclusion that 2012 may in some way be connected with the solar cycles. And I think that may be true, and it may feed into the dark star because, you know, if you have a sun and you have a twin that we don't know about, then the interactions between their very extensive magnetic and energetic fields may create interactions that we're just unaware of. We don't know anything about it because we don't know it's there at the moment.
How would they know about it?
How would the Mayans know about it? Well, I suppose they'd know about it in the same way that the Anunnaki knew about it.
They were told.
Well, Sitchin wrote his fourth book, I think it was. He was advocating the idea that some of the Anunnaki travelled over to the American continent and taught them all there was to know, so that the civilizations that were flowering somewhat later, you know, received knowledge that had been passed down, which was why you had the winged gods and the returning god, like, my pronunciation is going to be bad here. Is it Colcuran? But Quetzalcoatl of the Mexicans.
That's
sure.
Close enough.
Yes. It's not easy working off the top of your head with this stuff, is
No,
it?
you're doing all right.
So he was advocating this idea, and Sitchin's general sort of thesis that the sort of little colony of Anunnaki spread themselves around a little bit because they started to irritate each other, and they set up little tribes of people to fight on their behalf and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it sounds very familiar because we're humans. That's what we do. He was advocating this idea that they spread out, they took over land masses for themselves, and that the knowledge was passed down. So the Mayans may well have picked up on this, and they're well, I suppose it's they were incredibly orientated around maths, weren't they, with their calendar cycles, considering that the rest of their life was fairly rural out there in the jungle, and there must be some reason why they took it to such extremes in terms of calculating these dates in these calendars. And I agree with you. You know, when you're talking about numbers of the sort of order of magnitude of 5,000 years, all set out in days, then it's got to be significant, and it really shouldn't be something that anyone should just say, oh, well, it's a load of old New Age rubbish. You know, there may well be something to it.
Well, we're going to be there in a few more years, Andy.
Yes. I've actually written a book that's going to come out later on this year, which is set in the last quarter of 2012, and it's my opportunity in a sort of fictional format to offer some ideas as to what might happen during that time with relation to the Mayans. I won't go into it particularly.
But you would agree that whatever is going to happen might have already happened on this planet during this cyclical time?
It's difficult to say because the last time would have been around about the time that the Egyptians emerged. And you could look at that and you could say, well, that was a significant point in history, 3,100 BC or thereabouts. And that was a point where there was a great flowering of civilization. I would have to say, looking at that period of time was a positive period of time rather than a negative period of time, a period of growth for humanity. So if you took that as a you look back in time and you try and establish whether there was a catastrophe, which tends to be what we always concentrate on these things, that didn't seem to happen. So I would assume that there may be a change for us, but the change would be a good thing for us, not necessarily a bad thing.
Change? Well, I don't know.
I don't know
I just
either.
don't know what's going to happen.
But, whatever happened 5,200 years ago, or when it was, is it 3113 BC or something?
What can happen?
It was good.
What can happen to back up your theories? What's out there?
What, in terms of Planet X?
Scientists doing that, yeah.
There are a lot of scientists who are very interested in this subject, and they tend to keep their papers fairly low-key on this subject, I think it would be fair to say. But, in recent times, more public comment has come out that, people throw this idea about this brown dwarf out. The Japanese are well into it. They've been putting together some kind of telescopic search, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if the first people to find it would be the Japs, because they seem really into this subject.
That would revolutionize astronomy. You know that, Andy.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I have to say, George, if they find it, there won't be any credit for little old me. I mean, I'm just one of a number of people.
We'll help give you credit.
Bless you. But really, the person who's going to make their name in history will be the astronomer who finds it. And I have to say to you guys, do it.
And do you think anybody would say, hey, does anyone remember Zachariah Sitchin or Andy Lloyd?
Exactly. They might do. But really speaking, the astronomers have got it all to play for, because history remembers the guy who found the thing.
Right.
So,
and they'll name it after him.
Yeah, exactly. So there's everything to play for them. There's really, really a tremendous possibility of becoming extremely famous as an astronomer, and these guys should get out there and get working on it instead of doing whatever it is they do. But there are a number of camps. There's Mike Brown's camp, who he was quoted once. So he looks for a lot of these Kuiper Belt objects, and he was quoted once as saying, "It's now only a matter of time before something is going to be discovered out there that will change our entire view of the outer solar system." Yes, quite. And Alan Stern, astronomer at Southwest Research Institute at Boulder, is quoted as saying, "The evidence for Planet X is compelling." Compelling? That's really strong there, isn't it? I mean, I agree with him. It is compelling. Then I've got Callis and Graham, who are astronomers in California. The shape of the Kuiper Belt has Callis thinking that the sun might also have a companion that keeps the Kuiper Belt confined within a sharp boundary. So those are just a few little snippets of some of the astronomers who are contemporary with us, who are taking this kind of idea seriously. And in the next few years, there are going to be a number of sky searches in the infrared that go up, on rockets mostly, to go into orbit, and they are going to provide the answers, to be honest with you.
Well, and what you bring to the table, Andy, is a perspective that I hadn't thought about before. And yes, we've heard about the binary star system, the possibility that our sun had a twin that was burned out, for example. What you bring is the moon theory, which NIBIRU, you claim, is a moon. That's novel, and that also explains the heat source, the fact that this planet, this moon, could go so far out and still be able to keep inhabitable creatures on it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I remember from, we go back to Cosmos, and I used to watch Cosmos and Voyager, and there were all these fantastic discoveries. And, of course, what we all wanted to hear was they discover life, they find water, they find habitable planet in the solar system. And one of the dreadful things that happened to planetary science in the 70s was that Voyager kind of killed it. You had the moon landings, and they were sending all these probes out, and we had this wonderful idea that the solar system might be teeming with life, and it might be really exciting, and everything was just a dead rock. And people lost interest, frankly. I mean, that's what went wrong with the whole thing. People lost interest because they wanted to find out about life. And, okay, we found areas in the solar system where there is some frozen water, and, you might have some microbes, and maybe Europa's got some life in its ocean.
We want to find people.
Exactly. Yeah. But this idea, this brown dwarf and its moon, totally takes us back to where we were in the early 70s.
It really does. I like it. Andy, stay with us. On our last hour, what we do is open up the phone lines, so we shall do that with you and give people an opportunity to talk with you. We'll be back.